I know nothing about football, but I do know a lot about rainbow flags and things like that. So what's the situation here in football? What's going on?
Well, I mean, you've seen rainbow flags just about everywhere in public life. You've seen them on, zebra crossings, covering banks, in school playgrounds, everywhere. And now they're part of football too. So in the UK, there have been campaigns to get players to wear rainbow laces. In Germany, Munich Stadium was lit up in full of pride colours. Yeah. And here at this weekend, French players were essentially asked to wear shirts with the rainbow flag emblazoned on them. Now, Idrissa Gueye didn't turn up to this match. He was given he was excused for personal reasons. Right. So we're kind of speculating as to why. So we don't know, actually. We don't know for sure. We don't know, but he also missed last year's version of the same event, citing gastroenteritis. We also know that he's a devout Muslim, so there's a kind of sense that we have enough reason to believe that he is opposed to the wearing of the pride flag. Given
that we don't know for sure, let's just caveat it in that way. We don't know for sure what's happened here. But let's talk hypothetically. If there is a Muslim player, a devout religious person, and part of that person's faith is that they don't want to be seen openly supporting lifestyles that would conflict with their faith, why would that be a problem for him to not wear the rainbow flag?
Well, because now we live in a world where compelled speech is becoming more normal. It's not just that you should not be homophobic, of course, we all agree with that, but you have to essentially, repeat the mantras of either the LGBT rights lobby or there's a similar thing going on in anti-racism. You have to be actively anti-racist. Or you will have heard this slogan, "Silence is violence," around the Black Lives Matter demos. So that means you have to sign up to a certain set of ideas. You have to believe that, Britain is a white supremacist country, that all white people have a certain amount of privilege, etc., etc. It goes beyond simply not being racist, not being homophobic, not being bigoted. Yes. So unless you're seen to actively participate in, the kind of woke movement, then you're going to be shunned or you're going to be punished.
Is there a problem in football with homophobia? I know there's been a problem with racism. They had the Kick Racism Out campaign. That seemed to me to be very important because there were people saying horrible racist things on the terraces, and that did need to be addressed, surely. Is there a problem with homophobia of that kind?
Well, I think the fact that just this week, earlier this week, we had the first kind of active professional footballer come out suggests that there may be a bit of an issue, but he was so celebrated and praised and, from every level that perhaps that's going away. So I can understand why people might want to tackle a perceived problem. Yeah. But then it's altogether another thing to say that literally everyone must toe exactly the same line on this issue.
Well, also, what's the connection? I mean, the rainbow flag, to me, doesn't really represent gay rights anymore, and to a lot of gay people it doesn't. And so the laces and it actually represents a movement that a lot of us feel is actually quite regressive. Yeah. And that's so... It's a political symbol, isn't it?
It is a political symbol. I agree with you. On the one hand, it represents this kind of more kind of woke retelling of gay rights and trans rights that can be very regressive and, very anti-free speech and very intolerant. On the other hand, it's also a kind of corporate virtue signalling thing. It can be an empty gesture. So if you take a club like PSG, it's actually owned by the Emir of Qatar. Yes. And, Qatar famously is somewhere where homosexuality is illegal, punishable by prison. The whole of the footballing world is about to decamp to Qatar for the World Cup this winter. Yet, at the same time...
Are they going to wear the rainbow flag there?
I doubt it. I think... let's see. I would salute any player who was brave enough to make that kind of protest.
But that's where the flag makes sense, doesn't it? If you're going to a place where being gay is illegal... Waving that flag makes sense to me. Yeah. But corporations waving the flag now that they've got equal marriage, now with equal rights, where there's no risk. I don't remember any of these corporations waving that flag back when we had Section 28 or when we didn't have equal age of consent. Absolutely. It's in a context where it's completely risk-free, where it's seen as, sufficiently anodyne a message if you take it to just be in favour of gay rights. So who could object to that? So there's not actually that much virtue behind the virtue signalling, if you see what I mean. So what will happen to the player then, if this is indeed the case, that he's refusing to do this? Is he because of this? Is he going to be sanctioned, do you think?
Potentially, yes. A lot of people are calling for him to be sanctioned. I don't know what kind of sanction that would entail, perhaps some kind of fine or something. But, yeah, there's the possibility of him being punished. He's essentially been given an ultimatum by the French Footballing Federation and, lots of other kind of people, various anti-homophobia groups in France are calling for a crackdown on him. Even Valérie Pécresse, who was one of the failed French presidential candidates, has called for him to be sanctioned. So,
but you can't say to a player, you've got to have this set of opinions, otherwise you can't kick a ball in a net. Doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't make sense.
Sorry, I know there's more to it than that.
It doesn't make sense to you and I, but that's the kind of climate we find ourselves in, where it's not just that people are cracking down on free expression and what people say, but it's, you know, what people think or what we imagine they think.
Right.
Is now a source of controversy and something that we seem to want to control. So, you know, if you think about the rise of things like unconscious bias training and tests, you know, the belief that even if you don't ever express a bigoted view, you probably harbour it in your soul and that needs to be corrected. Or think about microaggressions, which, you know, on the one hand, yes, they're seen as an unintended slight and someone on the receiving end is hurt by that, but they are also said to reveal your kind of inner bigotry that needs to be cleansed. So if you're not going along with, you know, the exact kind of woke mantra, then you're seen as a problem. Can
you explain to us what the difference is here with this idea of compelled speech? You mentioned that phrase earlier. Why is the notion of compelled speech a particular problem?
It's a problem because you're essentially forcing someone to say something that they don't believe, to express a belief that goes against their own kind of deeply cherished beliefs. And, you know, normally in a free society, we would recognise that that's a problem, just because...
Yeah, it's not the same as saying, these are some words you can't say. It's not the same as that kind of censorship. It's saying these are words you must say.
These words must come out of your mouth, and if they don't, then we know you're a bad person.
Yes, and that kind of is applicable to the idea of you should put your pronouns at the end of your emails or say them at the start of meetings, that kind of thing.
Yes, it's very similar. Yeah, pronouns is a great example of compelled speech. Even though they're kind of called preferred pronouns, really they're non-negotiable.
Yes, that's right. But there was that case it was a Scottish university that made freshers or new students do a test where they had to make statements such as whiteness is sinful or whatever it was. And if they didn't make the statements, if they didn't pass the test, they couldn't get in. So that's compelled speech, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost a kind of loyalty test, in a way. You know, and we're seeing it crop up in all kinds of different contexts. And this Idrissa Gueye example is just the latest, and you know. Well, shocking.
I find it rather baffling, but then I find everything about football a little bit baffling.